Aloha and welcome to Music 102, Module 4, Session 1, The Ideal Other, Views of Tahiti and French Polynesia. Now I mentioned something in our discussion on Hawaii when I talked about exotic music or the notions of exoticism. And here you see a painting, a European painter imagining or his rendition of the bright, colorful, dark-skinned, mysterious Polynesian females. And that brings us to notions of exoticism. It had its beginnings long before the explorations, but Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a Frenchman, coined the term or popularized the term the noble savage. And the idea is that during Europeans, during their era of enlightenment, which is a dubious term once you understand what was going on in Europe during that time, but as they began to colonize across the globe, as they began to interact with other non-European, non-African, non-Asian cultures, they created or enhanced this notion of exotic or different or mysterious. And there's a couple of concepts we need to understand here to really put this in perspective. The first one is hegemony, and that is a term that means dominating influence or control by one group over another group. And that's especially true in the context of colonization. Now that relates to ethnocentrism, which we've discussed earlier in the course, where people think that their way of seeing the world is the most accurate way of seeing the world, or the most valid way of seeing the world. So the language of hegemony or ethnocentrism are things like primitive, savage, uncivilized. Those are the more demeaning terms because they imply an opposition to certain other concepts. So primitive or uncivilized as opposed to being civilized, being cultured. And again, these are distorted terms, they're ethnocentric terms and concepts. Now, even when we're being less demeaning and less negative, sometimes we're being patronizing when we say things like innocent or childlike or exotic. There are all kinds of processes that happen during this episode of colonization in the Pacific. We've already examined what happened in Hawaii, and now we're going to examine what happened in Tahiti. So we'll talk about instruments and cultural exchange in the South Pacific. Here you see a picture of an instrument that is sometimes called ukulele, sometimes now just ukulele, the same word as a Hawaiian word, and sometimes called Tahitian banjo. We have similar instruments in Tahitian and Cook Islands cultures, and you're going to see a theme here as we discuss Tahiti in this session and discuss Cook Islands in the next section, and that is the concept of cultural exchange or cultural sharing or cultural borrowing. So we have the to'ere, a slit log idiophone. You'll see that come up in a photo as we go through. We have the fa'atete, which is a single head membranophone, also coming up in another photo. The pahu, a double head membranophone, which functions as a timekeeper. If you're familiar with European or Euro-American marching bands and the bass drum keeping the time, keeping the beat, the pahu serves a similar function in Tahitian music. The ukulele, as you see in this photograph, formerly spelled as ukulele in Tahiti. It's the Tahitian version of the Hawaiian ukulele. It is tuned smaller than the guitar. It's tuned higher pitch than the guitar. And as I mentioned, this is sometimes called the Tahitian banjo. And here are photos of the percussion instruments we talked about. On the left is a small single-head membranophone called the fa'atete. In the center is a taller slit log drum or slit log idiophone, and that is called in Tahiti the to'ere. And over on the right, we see the larger membranophone. There are two heads to this drum, and that's the pahu. Now, to get an idea of what they sound like together, I have a YouTube example for us to take a look at.
You're on.
Hopefully from that video you get a sense of how the toeres, they almost always have at least 3 toeres in the group, and they play some interlocking or interweaving rhythmic patterns, a very interesting and complex kind of rhythmic combination. Now we also have a video of the ukulele, and this is a very distinctive style of playing. I should say distinct from Hawaiian ukulele playing in the strumming style. So take a look at this. Now it's always interesting to see the titles of these YouTube clips. This one, of course, says fastest uke player from the South, or uke, which is a slang contraction of the word ukulele. And whether he's actually the fastest, well, that's open to question, but he's pretty darn fast. So that gives you an idea of a unique kind of tuning style, a unique kind of strumming style They call this the Tuamotu strum, taken from one of the island groups in French Polynesia. And Cook Island ukulele players will play a similar style. Sometimes they will actually use the Tahitian version of the ukulele. Sometimes they will use their own Cook Islands version, and you'll see and hear more about that in the next session. Next, we want to talk about some representative genres in Tahiti, and in doing this I want to take you back to one of the early sessions that we had in the online course, where I explained to you that we'll be taking musical snapshots and cultural snapshots, so to speak. We can't have a video of real-time representations of all the music throughout all the history of these different cultures, but we always want to look at some representative genres and give you just a little window into the aesthetic values and the cultural values of each of these different cultural groups. So in Tahiti, we'll do the same thing, and we'll first take a look at a dance called the Otea, which is a short, very energetic dance. It's accompanied by percussion ensemble. It has no preconceived text, no poetry, so to speak, no lyrics, but often includes spontaneous shouts and verbal expressions of encouragement or happiness or enthusiasm. Now I should mention here that as you watch this video, most of you will recognize it as most of our outsider ideas about Tahiti. I have students in my class here on campus that will refer to the famous hip-shaking dance of Tahiti, and it is the Otea that they're speaking of. So let's take a look and remind ourselves of this special flavor of Tahiti. Now, of course, a great deal of that appeal to outsiders is visual in the dance, to be drawn in by those emotions which are not, what's the right word, not duplicated in many other dances in other cultures. But hopefully you can also zero in on the style of drumming that accompanies that, with the to'eres and the fa'atete and the pahu drum. Next we want to take a look at Aparima Himine, singing dance with string band and pahu. Now sometimes the string band is not easy to hear. There is singing text or lyrics involved with this one, so let's look at the contrast between these two styles.
Tahiti.